Soapbox Wisdom. I'm Barbara Menino,
And I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
and we're here to talk business and things that are on our minds, and we would bet that are on your minds too. So I was thinking, Christine, in a recent conversation we'd had, you told me about an incident that perturbed you, and it led to some food for thought on both of our parts. I think we
Yeah,
should revisit that.
isn't that how our conversations always seem to go? It's like we go down rabbit holes before we know it. Yeah, this particular one concerned an email that I get from the local business journal, which I know it's a local organization that has multiple employees, not a large one, but in the email, there's an announcement about a women's conference. I forget exactly what the focus of the women's conference is coming up this fall, in October, I believe it is. And in the email, it says to register here, and there's a link there to go and register for the conference. So I'd like to go and I don't want to wait and then I'll forget about it, or maybe they'll, sell out all the tickets, everything. And the first time I clicked on it, it only took me to a web page that talked about it was just short paragraph about being a sponsor, and here's an email to contact a person about sponsorships. And I was like, okay, they're a little bit behind. I get it. You start putting stuff out, but it's not quite right. Well, and I get these emails probably every day with announcements, and maybe our listeners even have business journals in their areas, so they kind of know what I'm talking about. And I would periodically click that link again. And gosh darn it, Barbara, there still is not a registration link. I'm thinking, geez, if that were me, I wouldn't be able to get away with that. I'd be having people contacting me saying, well, what's this? The link's not working. But then the one day I said, "Well, it's okay. They're a big organization compared to me, and they can get away with it." And I just was thinking those words in my head of like, "Oh, and they can get away with it." It's started me down that path of what are we tolerant of or not tolerant of from different businesses, different business owners, and whatnot. I know that opened up a whole can of worms when you and I were talking, because you were bringing up some things that had not sat well with you over the years, and I've got stories, but it just got me to thinking. Why are we tolerant of some businesses, business owners, business organizations, and then others were not. And I tend to see, like you and I, we're solopreneurs. We're in this ourselves, doing the work ourselves and whatnot. People, I think, are less tolerant, and I say that only because of things that I've done over the years. And instead of somebody commenting on the content that I was giving, like a Facebook Live, I think one of the first ones years ago, a friend of mine, the first post was, "I can see the light glaring in your glasses." And I was like, "But what about the content?" It's like, "What about the content?" Now, would she have done that with someone else? I don't know, but it's just these things that I go down the rabbit holes on.
Well, in the case of the Business Journal, even though you said it wasn't a big corporation, it
Mhm,
it is a known commodity. And
mhm.
you questioned, I mean, it annoyed you, but did you call and complain?
No.
Okay, so you let it go. I don't know whether you'd call and complain if a similar error happened with a smaller business or a solopreneur.
Well,
But
it's not so I don't see those so much as calling and complaining, but it's, getting a hold of the owner of whatever it is you're reading or whatever and saying, "Hey, that's not working." And I know with emails, how many times though there's a follow-up email when links are broken. It does happen. It absolutely does happen. Uh but again, considering what type of business that one was, I was just like, that didn't sit well with me. Uh,
You expected better.
yeah,
And
yeah, I
that's
did.
part of it too, that you had an expectation that was up here, and
Yeah.
essentially they didn't deliver on that expectation. Well, I'm going to tell you a little secret, and it just goes to show that some things are unavoidable. So, just a few, maybe a minute or so ago, your technology went a little funky.
Uh-oh.
You were talking, but there was a disconnect between the movement of your mouth and the easy flow. So there are certain things that can go wrong. That said, the event that you just described was preventable. That was
Mhm,
just somebody didn't do it right.
mhm.
You think that's a difference? Whether it's a preventable error or one that just happens? Does that make a difference?
Well, I don't know about you, but I see people commenting about things no matter whether it's preventable or not. Now, you and I, Barbara, we think too much. I know we both think too much.
You think
And
so? You think maybe?
I look at these, I mean, like, because I understand the technologies that people are using, I'm less tolerant when I know it could have been prevented with proofreading. Well, and about proofreading, being a writer and whatnot. When it's the technology glitch, like you had said, I had a little problem there with my words because of the technology we're using here and the internet connection and whatnot. I understand the problem, whereas now maybe some of our viewers saw that and they're gonna say, "Uh-oh, it's not working right," and they don't understand the processes and how all of this works. So yeah, I don't think it's I think in the most part for me, yeah, I think about whether it's preventable or not, whether it's the technology or they just didn't proofread or something like that. But for the most part, I don't think people will give you the benefit of the doubt, that way. Uh,
I I think you're right. Attention spans are short these days. Everybody wants the quick fix.
mhm,
And when that doesn't happen for one reason or another, the incident you had with the business journal is an example of that. Just today, as a matter of fact, I got a recorded call from one of my docs with whom I have an appointment later this week. And the doctor's staff was calling to confirm. And the opening line of that recording was, "We're calling to have you confirm your appointment." And then it proceeded to go through a whole litany of, if you can't make the appointment, this is the number to call. We charge $25 for any missed but unidentified absences or failure to show up. And at the end of the message, I thought, so now I must have to press a number to confirm. And there was no number. And I thought, oh, Barbara, it's you, right? It's you because you're busy right now. And this call cut into your busyness. So you didn't listen carefully enough. So I listened to it again. And I'll be darned, I still didn't hear the confirm number. And so I said to myself, again, talk about cutting slack. I said, it's you, Barbara. And I listened to it a third time. I must have been on the phone with this recorded message for 5 minutes, getting nowhere. And I simply then hung up because they gave me no tool with which to confirm the appointment. Now,
wow.
things like that drive me nuts.
Mhm,
They cut into my busy day. They're very interruptive of my zone of concentration. And yet, did I cut that doc some slack? Because he is, after all, it is a medical practice, and I've gone to them for years, and they're known in the community. So did I give them slack because of that? On the other hand, should they have known better? Because they have plenty of people in the mix to check and balance what they do.
Well, the whole medical community and communications, oh, that's a whole separate conversation. I've had some really bad calls myself lately, and yeah, and again, I know the technologies and how to automate these things, and it just amazes me that they don't get it right. Uh, and in fact, just recently, I left a second very detailed message for somebody saying, "And I wanna speak to a human being." And by golly, they called me back. It's like
Amazing. Well, I
but
perhaps
that's a whole other conversation with them, but, like, today, really talking about those people, the small business owners, and again, small business, it includes, multi-million dollar companies according to the IRS and whatnot, but I mean, yeah, those doctor, phones, that's just terrible, what they put you through, but everybody's time is important, but to have you listen to something 3 times and it still isn't there, oh my goodness.
But perhaps I was the idiot that kept
No.
thinking. I mean, it would have been faster if I had just dialed them back and gotten a live person.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I didn't do that. But what do you think about that? So we're both reflecting our annoyance. And I guess what we kind of looked at a bit is, should we be annoyed? There's a lot written out there that many people strive for perfection. What is perfection? Is there really perfection? And the question arises, should we be tolerant of mistakes? Are we tolerant? Um, how do you feel about that?
Well, Barbara, you really wanna know? Well, I will tolerate, things going wrong, things not quite right to a certain extent with everybody. But honestly, when I know somebody has a team working behind the scenes to implement the work, I kind of think for me, I am less tolerant of them because I'm like, wait a minute, they're making some really nice money. They have a team working and putting all these moving pieces together and they still didn't get it right. But when I know it's just an individual doing things on their own, I will tolerate it for a while, but I believe, no, you have to get better. I mean, yes, mistakes happen. I make mistakes, things don't work. Um, but if you have to, I believe, tolerate to a certain extent, but we all need to strive to move forward and fix the errors, and the next time around, remember, "Oh, wait a minute, last time I set this up or did this, I was missing this piece or whatever. I won't have it happen again." Again, I don't believe that, oh, we should just say, "Oh, mistakes are mistakes and it's okay." No, I mean, but it is interesting to see people, multi-million dollar businesses make mistakes, but boy, I can sit back and say, "Hey, I don't feel so bad when I make a mistake. Look at that." It's
The old misery loves company. So,
yeah.
well, what do you think um, the general trend of people is, though? Do you think people, now in your case, you said you're not forgiving, or you think twice, because if an organization has a team, and as I said earlier too, there should be checks
Mhm.
and balances. There's an opportunity for objective checks and balances. But do you think because an organization is big or known and has a team, has the resources, that just because of those kind of street creds, just the publicness of them, do you think people are more tolerant of companies' mistakes on that end of the spectrum than they are of up and coming businesses, people who may be solopreneurs and are wearing many, many hats and getting all pieces of the business or having to perform all the tasks in the business by themselves.
Oh, no, absolutely everything you said. Yes, I believe that's, and this is only my belief and from what I see, in general, people are more tolerant of the larger businesses when things don't go right. Although people you could be on a Zoom and something's wrong with the technology and people will be in the chat box. I can't hear you. I can, and they already know about it. But people keep telling you, I can't hear you. I mean, think about it. How many times that happens on Zoom? And it's like, and I just sit there. I'm like, I'm not telling them again that I can't hear them. They know it. They know, and they're working on it. They're going to fix it. So you do get it at all levels. But I don't know. What do you think, Barbara? I mean, like I say, this is my opinion. What's yours on that?
Well, I that's very interesting because I've been on big Zooms, like retreats and conferences and all of that, and something will go wrong with the technology, and suddenly everybody's typing into the Zoom. It froze, can't hear. Uh, I don't know, and the happiest I am is when a member of the company's team comes on and says, bear with us, be patient, there is a problem, we're fixing it. That's an interesting piece too. Being accountable for one's errors can wipe out some of the annoyance, I
Mhm.
feel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree on that one. Yeah.
And that's right up there with what you said a few minutes ago, this fine line between forgiveness and cutting people slack, and at the same time, expecting companies with whom you do business and us as business owners expecting of ourselves that we will always try our best, put our best foot forward, check ourselves as best we can to be assured that we're not making errors. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but there
Mhm.
has to be that striving to learn from mistakes and get better.
Yeah. And this topic came up when we were, chatting recently because part of me also feels that it's the solopreneurs that are going to be rising up and building, tremendous businesses one day and helping to change their communities and the world just like big business does. So I'm like, yes, listeners, are you listening? Please be kinder. And take it into account where somebody is at in their progress of building their business. And a lot of times I think too when errors are made, when something's not working right and automation is broken or something like that, the person responsible I think knows pretty quickly. And there too, like with emails, if something's not working, by the time I read an email and click a link to go somewhere, I know 100 other people have already read it and they're telling them, "Hey, that didn't work." So I don't I don't send another email saying, "Hey, this isn't working," or typing in a chat or something like that that something isn't working. It's like I'm like I give people that slack. It's like they already know. They already know there's a problem. So
You know, one thing about that, telling a business that they've made an error, as the person on the receiving end of that error, part of the tolerance, I think, is calling it to their attention politely.
mm.
Um, there are, even if we're annoyed, I think we should step back for a second and kind of check ourselves and always put our best forward in commenting that a mistake has been made. The other
Mhm.
thing I think, even just talking about stuff like this between us, perhaps people listening, there's some comfort in knowing that we're kind of all in this together. We're all experiencing the same problems, either as business owners or as people using the services of business. Um, and so sometimes just talking about these things, even injecting a little humor, increases that tolerance at the same time that it gives us the energy to do better on both the service provider and the service receiving end.
Yeah.
And
And as you were talking there, so it came to light of I want our listeners also to take away of, okay, so you feel the need to let somebody know something wasn't quite right. You could see the lights in my glasses, but hey, comment about the content too. You know? Let let me know, was it great content? Did you benefit from it? There's one
we
to add to that.
well, that's actually a very good point because as a writer, I've participated in many workshops, give clients or students or whatever critiques of their work. And this rule of thumb in critiquing, I think, is not just for writing, but it's for in general. Find the good,
Mm.
point out the strengths, start with that, and then gently but candidly ease into the constructive criticism because that's what makes people want to do better and it positions them to be able to do better and it's supportive, which is very important. And at the end of the day, we all have to be supportive of each other in this business world and this very competitive, hectic, noisy marketplace.
So well said, Barbara. And I believe with that, we are calling this a wrap for Soapbox Wisdom today.